Welcome. Welcome to this place. Here we search for truth and understanding. We celebrate life and we contemplate its mysteries. Here we share healing and wholeness. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, here you are welcome. We're so glad you're here with us this morning. Come into this sacred space with all that you are, for you are enough. Come into this community of loving support, for here you are among friends. Come into this church with all of your joys and with all of your sorrows, for here we will hold all that you are. Come with all of your brokenness. Come with all of your beauty, for here you are loved. Come, let us worship together. To invite forward Duncan Glover, who will share with us his Love Connects Us testimony.
This year's theme for our annual fund drive is Love Connects Us, which we've adopted from the RE theme. And last week, Jeanette Rule, in her testimony, spoke quite eloquently about many ways that love connects us, including the following, which I'll quote from Jeanette. Within this congregation, there are, of course, many ways our connecting with each other happens. Worship service, coffee hour and meals of various kinds, committee work, social events, song, music, learning, teaching, caring for each other, being there for each other, and simply communicating with each other. The list goes on, and I am certain you could add to this. We are a community, and love connects us, unquote. So this morning, I would like to speak about how love connects us through our friendships at First Parish. And as an example, I would like to give you a brief overview of my friendship with Dan Bible. Friday afternoon, day before yesterday, I met with Dan and Jeanette at their home and asked their permission, told them what I planned to do, and I also emailed this testimonial to Jeanette and got their feedback that it was okay to do this. So when Louise and I first started coming to First Parish in 1999, I joined the choir, and that's how I got to meet Dan. We quickly became friends. We sang in the bass section and practiced reading the notes and the lyrics for the anthems, trying to get it right together. And as time went on, as I got involved in activities with Dan and other things going on, I got to know him better. Back in, I think it was 2010 and 2012, we served along with others, Dan and I, on a committee that looked into replacing the new house with a new building. It was called the FPUU New Education Center Committee. And for as long as I've been here, Dan has been leading our UU Saviors in the vestry at the time of Passover, where we would share in the reading of the Haggadah and the rituals, the song, and the special foods that we would eat. So as many of you know, Dan was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. This is about 3 years ago, and it was about November of 2017, just over 2 years ago, that I began meeting Dan for coffee and pastries at the Blue Moon Bagel Cafe. So it was typically every other week for an hour, sometimes weekly if our schedules would permit. And this went on through 2018, 2019, and through January of this year. So we'd start out by ordering our coffee and pastries pastries, and we jockey for first position at the cash register each of us wanted to pay. And after the most recent holidays, he won up me in that area. He showed up with a Blue Moon gift card. It just had to be used up. So we started out by sitting down and we talk about recent events at the church, perhaps last Sunday's, the prior Sunday's service, the coffee hour, what's going on. And then we'd also talk about Dan's consulting projects, the clients that he had at the time, and I'd talk about my projects, the clients that I had. And then at some point he would share with me his ongoing chemotherapy, the chemotherapy period that he had just been through, his ongoing doctor's appointments, his upcoming chemos, his infusions, his CT scans, and whatnot. Keep me posted on that. He has a very, I'd say, realistic outlook for his prognosis. He shared that with me on many occasions. He's had candid conversations with his doctors and researched his illness online. He also has a special knowledge of statistics through his education and training and career experience. So he doesn't sugarcoat his survival, the survival statistics, the life expectancies of the pancreatic cancer populations. So we move on from that and we talk about our kids and our grandkids and our families, and it's quite clear that Dan has a wonderful pride and love for his family members. We show each other our cell phone photos. We often touched on current events in the USA and worldwide. Dan has been a longtime advocate of human rights, of civil rights, social action. He has a particular affinity for workers and the right of workers to form unions and collectively bargain with their employers for better working conditions, better pay, better benefits. Dan spearheaded our Equal Exchange Fair Trade coffee here at First Parish. And he's been ordering fair trade coffee for a number of years for our coffee hours at the vestry and other events. Equal Exchange, its mission is to promote small-scale farmers and help them out in their communities. There are many other things that Dan has done at First Parish behind the scenes. He takes care of the trash and recycling here. He's mowed the lawn. He archives our historical documents at the church. He maintains our website. He's done that for many, many years. Finally, Dan and I share a compatible sense of humor. We really enjoy a chuckle or two. I think that's one of the main reasons that we've continued at the Blue Moon for so long now, that we share so many smiles and laughs together. So each time upon ending our conversation, we'd schedule our next visit, and then we have a warm and extended hug. And as I drive away, and I'm thinking to myself, who's on the receiving end and giving end of this friendship? Because if you know Dan, he has a genuine interest in you and me. He wants to hear our joys and our sorrows. He places others before himself, even throughout this illness that he's facing. So Dan, I carry you in my heart, the Blue Moon, singing in the choir, your satyrs, your intelligent, thoughtful opinions, your wit, your humor. Love connects us. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan, for that touching testimonial. It really is true. Here at First Parish, there's friendships like this made every day, and this space really does bring us together. And for that, we're so thankful. Dear God, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, we ask that you be with us here this morning as we enter into this time of prayer and meditation. Take a moment and focus on your breath. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out. Breathe in the warmth and light of this sacred space. Now breathe out any pain or hurt you may be feeling this morning. Just breathe, knowing that you're surrounded by infinite love and support. This morning, let us say a prayer for all those who are waking up to hunger, waking up to homelessness and fear. Let us pray for all those who have not received a paycheck for far too long and aren't sure how they're going to make ends meet. Let's say a prayer for all those who are struggling to find hope in the middle of this cold winter. Let's hold all of these prayers in our hearts as we enter into a time of silent meditation.
This is called Love Abundant by Alicia Ford. I lift my eyes up to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from love abundant. My help comes from the hills. My help, it comes from ancient mothers whose hearts beat in mine. It comes from the trees that sway and the breeze that sways them. My help comes from all that was and is and ever will be. I lift my eyes, hushed by the soothing touch of waves, caressing wounded shores, wounded souls. I lift my eyes to the horizon bathed, the hum of mothers and mothers' mothers, cradling, gently rocking. I lift my voice, call of the sea trees, sister moon, mother earth, my soul weeping, a symphony of life overflowing. I give myself. I, too, hum through every pore, with every breath. I give myself, an extension of all that is, was, and ever will be.
Every morning, it's the same routine. I wake up early, before dawn, stumble out of bed and somehow find my robe and my slippers. The house is always freezing cold, so I turn the heat on. And I head to the kitchen to make coffee. That first sip of black coffee. Are there any coffee drinkers out there? You know just how wonderful it can be. Dark and smoky and delicious. Well, after a few minutes, I start feeling like myself again, able to focus and actually enjoy being awake this early. You know, and a little while later, I'm ready for that second cup. The second cup I affectionately like to call dessert. Because to this cup, I add whole milk and a little packet of stevia, and what I like to call a little packet of love. Now, standing there sipping my coffee, it got me thinking. Now, maybe it was because soon it would be Valentine's Day, maybe it was all of that caffeine rushing through my brain, but it got me thinking about love. Little packets of love. You know, for all too often, our love for others is like these little packets, wrapped in little individual serving sizes, not too much, not too little, each separated from the other. This packet of love is for our spouse, this one is for our child, this one for our dog. Everything is just perfect, just so. You know, for some reason, we tend to keep our feelings of love carefully packed away, making sure it will be given to the one it's intended for. And we wouldn't want to waste it. Can't be going around giving our love every which way, willy-nilly. You know, maybe it's safer this way. Each packet of love set aside in exactly the right amount for only the one for whom it's intended. You know, these expressions of love, they can come in many different forms. The ancient Greeks, they had several words to describe these different types of love. There's philia, which is translated as brotherly love, but it's commonly understood to be the love we feel for a friend. There's storge, which is the familial love we feel for either our parents or for our children. Then there's eros, the passionate love shared between couples. But, you know, each of these types of love, they're instinctual. They're part of who we are. They're part of what makes us human. And there's some ways that are helpful to deepening those relationships, and there's other ways that aren't quite as helpful. You know, I recently read this book by Gary Chapman entitled The 5 Love Languages. Maybe some of you have read it. In it, he describes the different ways that we all express and the different ways we all accept love. He writes that if we are to have relationships where we truly feel valued and appreciated, we must become aware of the love language that our loved one prefers. He breaks this down into 5 basic love languages. The first one is what he calls words of affection, words of affirmation. You know, according to Chapman, people with this love language, they need to hear their loved one say to them, "I love you." Even better is including the reasons behind this love through a written note or a card, or talking directly to them with sincere words of kindness and affirmation. For those who most value words of affirmation, they need to hear their loved one tell them thank you. To tell them, that was nice of you. I appreciate what you did for me. The next love language he describes as quality time. This language, says Chapman, is all about giving your partner individual attention. As he writes, quote, spending time with your partner is about being together, paying attention to one another, sharing something meaningful together, and listening and communicating. This could include preparing or eating a meal together, going on a hike in the woods, or simply watching a movie together. Another love language is expressed through receiving gifts. You know, the person who prefers this language thrives on the love, the thoughtfulness, the effort behind that gift. In short, for them, actions speak louder than words. The act of giving a gift tells your partner that you cared enough to think about them in advance and to go out of your way to get something to make them smile. The next is what he calls acts of service. This love language includes anything you do for the other one, like vacuuming the floors, going grocery shopping, or sending thank you notes. Chapman suggests asking your partner to give you ideas for things they'd like for you to do that would make their life easier, that would make their life more enjoyable, such as making them breakfast in bed, or walking the dog. You know, these things can demonstrate that you care about your partner and your life together. The final love language is physical touch. People who speak this love language thrive on any kind of physical touch. According to Chapman, be intentional about finding ways to express your love using physical touch, either giving hugs, touching their arm or hand during a conversation, or offering to give a back rub. This can be a very effective way of communicating your love. So which love language do you value the most? What about your spouse? You know, for understanding your partner's love language, it's important for any healthy relationship. See, but the problem is that people tend to express their love in the way they personally like to receive it. And one person's primary love language often doesn't align with that of their partner. So you know that expensive diamond necklace that you bought for your beloved? You know, the thing you are certain would let them know just how deeply you care about them? It may not be received as you intended. For your partner may simply need to hear those words of affirmation, where you tell them that you love them, and that you honor them, and that you cherish all that they are. They could care less about some silly necklace. Or maybe, perhaps, you show your love through acts of service, and you spent all evening preparing the most amazing meal for your spouse. While you cooked, you wanted your loved one to have time to themselves, to relax. But perhaps they would rather have made the meal together, because what they really wanted was more quality time with you. You know, you may have had the best intentions, but simply you were speaking the wrong love language. You gave them the wrong little packet of love. You know, the other day I was at the grocery store. I was doing the weekly shopping. See, one of the ways that I show love is through preparing and shopping for our meals. You know, this is a love language that I learned from my mom. She taught me the joy of cooking, and that there's nothing better than sitting down as a family and enjoying a homemade meal together. Well, I saw on my grocery list there in the grocery store the word stevia. You know, that sweetener I like to put in my second cup of coffee, my dessert cup. Well, I was about to grab that box filled with those little packets of stevia when I noticed something next to it. Now, there was this giant bag filled with loose stevia. There was no packets. It was just a big bag like you would buy raw sugar at the grocery store. I mean, this blew my mind. Who knew this even existed? Well, this changed everything. It's changed absolutely everything for me. No more carefully separated little packets meant for this one or for that one. Now at home, I have a seemingly endless container filled with infinite love. Which got me thinking about this other kind of love. Love that the ancient Greeks called agape. See, this is not a love that can fit into little packets. Now, you would need a container the size of the universe to fit a love this big. See, agape refers to that universal, unconditional love that transcends time and space. What is often described as the infinite love of God. Now, I know some of you have been taken aback by my use of that word, by the word God, the G word. I know that for some of us, this can be a very loaded word, one that can carry plenty of baggage. Perhaps for those of you who grew up in a different faith, the word God refers to only that judgmental God who sits on a throne, who will either reward or punish you when you die. If this is what you were taught to believe as a child, but have since rejected, I can certainly understand how hearing this word might cause you to raise your defenses. But you know, for me, since I was raised Unitarian Universalist, I wasn't raised with a negative association with the word God. See, when I say God, it is my shorthand way of describing that infinite love of which we're all a part. You know, that vibrating tremor that sometimes we can sense, and it reminds us of who we truly are. That interdependent web of divinity that beckons us towards our true selves. But whenever someone asks, rather than launching into this long explanation about my theology, I prefer to simply use the word God. You know, I also like the idea of reclaiming these words of reverence from our shared history that have significance for me. Because this word God is actually derived from the German word gut, which simply means good. And it's a very commonly used word, one that's used in a variety of faiths to describe the divine. God meaning good is something that rings true to me. You know, I prefer this word strongly over other words like Lord or King or Almighty, you know, all of which are derived from a monarchy, a hierarchical caste system. And for me, this doesn't even come close to my understanding of the divine. You know, actually, one of my earliest memories of hearing someone talk about God in a way that made sense to me was when I was 5 years old. I was sitting in a movie theater, and I heard the words of Jedi Master Yoda. He said, "For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you, between me, the tree, the rock, everywhere." You know, when I heard those words, they resonated with me in a way that nothing had before. You know, this force was not a personified God, but rather a life energy that exists everywhere. You know, what I didn't realize at the time was that Yoda was speaking about an ancient understanding of the divine known as pantheism. I mean, you can find pantheism described in Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism. It's even talked about in the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures. Pantheism speaks about the divine as an ethereal energy that is within all life and connects us all together. Similar to our Unitarian Universalist principle that describes the interconnected web of all existence. See, essentially, I believe God is the collective energy of all life that binds us together, that guides us, that nurtures us. It's that great mystery that we might not see, but somehow we sense that it is there. That's what I mean when I say the word God. And you likely have a different way of thinking about this. And that's as it should be. You know, our ability to honor and cherish those with different theologies is what makes us Unitarian Universalists. But you know, regardless of the words we choose to use or not use, I do think we can take a moment and set aside the noise of our busy lives. We will find a presence of something larger than ourselves. If we're mindful, if we're quiet, we may just hear that voice that was always there and will always be there to guide us. For in my experience, God is found there in those quiet places, in the cracks, in those whispers in the wind. As our Unitarian Universalist ancestor Henry David Thoreau reflects in his masterpiece Walden, a book he wrote while he escaped community and lived in the woods by himself for 2 years. He says, "In the midst of the gentle rain, while my thoughts prevailed, I was suddenly sensible of such sweet and beneficent society of nature. In the very pattering of the drops, and in every sound and sight around my house, an infinite and unaccountable friendliness, all at once, like an atmosphere sustaining me. Every little pine needle expanded and swelled with sympathy and befriended me. I was so distinctly made aware of the presence of something kindred to me that I thought no place could ever be strange to me again. How vast and profound is the influence of the subtle powers of heaven and earth. We seek to perceive them, and we do not see them. We seek to hear them, and we do not hear them. Identified with the substance of things, we cannot be separated from them. They are everywhere, above us, to our left, to our right. They environ us on all sides. He writes, it is an ocean of subtle intelligences. An ocean of subtle intelligences. You know, he tells us that a sea of wisdom is there, waiting to guide us, if only we would stop and notice. A fire so bright and strong is there to lead us, if only we would follow. An ocean of subtle intelligences. Agape. Endless packets of love. Divinity. Infinite wisdom. Spirit of life. Eternal mystery. God. I mean, there are many words we use. But truly, when we get right down to it, none of our feeble human words seem adequate, do they? For how do you describe that love that is so vast and so indescribable, but yet it's as close and as familiar as an old friend? I surely don't know, but somehow we continue to search for the right words. We continue to journey toward a place of deeper understanding, knowing that it is in the searching and not in the finding that we may find that truth that we have been looking for. Friends, may we continue to search together. And may love permeate your every heartbeat. May faith guide your every step. May truth and compassion be your eternal traveling companions. And may a deep, abiding spirit rest joyfully in your every waking wish and in your every resting dream. Go now, light stay with you until we meet again. Here ends our worship. May our service begin.